பழைய இட்லி நல்லா இருந்ததா? பிரியாணி பிரியாணி நல்லா இருந்ததா?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me, team?
Recording in progress.
You can hear me, right? Yeah, yesterday I have shown you how to work with XML approach, right? I have given the annotations also. Now I'll show you how we are going to work with annotations and what is the problem of working with XML approach. We are working with some other a new language, but if you are working with annotations, it is a pure Java application development. That is the difference between XML approach and annotation based approach. I'll show you a small example how we are going to work with annotations. Then we'll start a Spring framework. Okay. Let me open our workspace. File, switch workspace, HTTP. Close all. Sir, we'll get the Hibernate jar files link. Yesterday I have shared the link, right? Once again, if you want, I can share today also. Before closing the session, I'll share the jar file. I'll show the jar files. Okay. File, new Java project, Hibernate using annotations. Click on finish. Click on okay. Now let me create a Poja class. I want the link to Hibernate, sir. Yes, I'll share the jar files. Give me some time. Let me complete this example, then I'll show you. Okay. Let me create a separate package. Right click on SRC, new package. Okay. com.madhu.hibernate. Let me create a class called employee. Let me create a class called employee. In this employee.java, let me take some properties. Private int ID, private string name, private float, salary. Okay. All shift S or select all. Select all. Click on OK. I have taken setters and getters. Now I want to create a configuration file. Configure Eclipse installing, how to configure it. You are not going to configure anything, just we are creating a project. Just like your core Java, how we have worked, right? In the same manner, we are going to work with Hibernate. Okay. Right click on SRC, new, other, Hibernate.cfg dot, or else I'll do one thing. Same configuration file we have yesterday, we have taken, right? The same configuration file I'm going to take. Okay. The same configuration file we are going to take. Here, basically, if you have XML, if you have an XML, we are going to define like this, but we don't have a mapping file, right? We are going to use annotations. Okay, mapping. That is a class we have, right? Class we are going to define. Mapping class is equal to com.madhu.hibernate.employee. Like this, we are going to define. And so before working with test.java, you know, right? We need to add the jar files. build path, configure build path, add library. Yesterday already we created a library. That library we are adding. Okay. Select this, click on finish, apply and close. Okay. Now, instead of mapping file, we are going to work with annotations, right? I'll show you how we are going to work with annotations. At the rate of entity. At the rate of table of name is equal to emp123 at the rate id at the rate generated value. See, it should be auto incremented, right? Yesterday we have taken a generated tag, right? Similarly, we need to use this one. Okay. Similarly, we need to use this one at the rate of generated value. Strategy is equal to auto. Like this, we are going to define at the rate column at the rate column. So we need to get the column names, right? Yesterday we have given with the variable name and column name, right? Like this, we are going to define at the rate of column name is equal to EID. E name okay, like this we are going to define. Any questions team here? Whenever we are working with Hibernate, if you are working with annotations, we need to define our class is an entity class. Means it is entity means it is related to database class. Okay. And we need to give the table name, right? That is the reason we like this. We need to give at the rate table. I hope you understood, right? I think now we can go for test.java. If we define like this, we no need to. If we define like this, we no need to use XML. Okay. Now test.java. Where we need to get test.java inside the package. Right click on your package, new class called test.java. Okay. Main method. Configuration CFG is equal to new configuration CFG dot configure of session factory. Session factory. Session factor SF is equal to CFG dot build session factory. SF dot open session. Session dot begin transaction. Let me get a bit for employee class. Employee is equal to new employee. ID we don't need to give, it will be auto incremented. Set name of like this we need to define. Okay, these steps are same like yesterday we have taken, right? Yes, exactly. Configuration is a class. We are creating an object, right, directly by using your keyword. Here session factory and session are interfaces. If you want to work with session factory, we need to take the help of build session factory method of configuration. Similarly, if you want to work with session, we need to take the help of open session method of session factory. These two are interfaces, session factory and session. Okay. Now let me open the database. If you see here, there is only one table. If you see this, let me run this code once. Okay, it has done successfully. Now check in database. See here, EMP123 table got created. If you see the columns, whatever the columns we have created, those columns are going to be shown here. Okay, this is what the table name. Select a star from EMP123. Like this, we are going to work. Okay. Now take these annotations. One more important concept I want to discuss here, HQL. Hibernate query language, I told you, right? What is the use of working with the HQL also, I'll be showing you. Take these annotations and you need to take a configuration file and test.java. Why? Because those are same like yesterday's example, right? Just take only these annotations. I told you to take the annotations. If you are done right, I'll go for the next concept. Please take the annotations. That is the reason I have given 2 minutes time, team. Could I get the Hibernate jar files link? I'll be sharing the link here itself. Just a second. Yesterday I already shared you, but once again I'll share you here. Yeah, I have given here. Recordings will be shared through LMS basically. You will get through LMS. One important concept I want to discuss here. HQL. Hibernate query language. I told you, right, when I was starting the concept of Hibernate, I told you Hibernate is not SQL dependent. Hibernate is having their own query language called HQL. Okay. Did you remember that point, everyone? Did anyone remember the point? Hibernate is having their own query language called HQL. So in the previous example, I have shown you, right, at the rate entity, at the rate of table name. Okay. If you are working with HQL, we no need to give the table name and column names also. See here. We no need to give the table name and column names also in HQL. Here, we no need to give the table name and column names also. Okay. By default, if we don't give the table name, by default, our Poja class name is the table name. By default, By default, our variable names are the column names. And I have prepared a very beautiful document on Hibernate. I'll be sharing those things also. Okay. Let me show you this example how you are going to work. You understood the concept, right? What is the use of working with SQL? So you don't need to write the SQL queries. You don't need to give the table name and column names also. Just if you give at the rate of entity and at the rate of table, by default, this table is going to be created in database. By default, with the variable names, columns are going to be created. Okay. Simply you can give at the rate ID and at the rate generated value. Automatically ID is going to be created. You want to define separately the table names and column names. Are you getting my point? Are you getting my point what I'm trying to explain here, team? Please share the project folder at the end of our class daily. It can help us to practice. Sure. You mean what are the projects I am creating here? These things you are expecting? These things only, right? You are asking Narsimha? Yeah, sure. I'll keep in drive and I'll share the drive link before closing the session. Okay. Just a second, or else now itself I'll create one folder. File, new folder, Hibernate projects. Okay. This is the one. Now, just a second. Let me copy these two things. New folder, Hibernate projects. Okay. Let me copy this one as well. Okay. Now, what I will do, each one I'll be converting into a zip file. Add to archive, click on OK. Render, add to archive, click on OK. Now, what I'll do, I'll import those projects here and I'll be sharing you the drive link in chat box. You can take the link from chat box, everyone, so that you can practice. The same thing you are expecting from me, right? And the remaining projects also, remaining workspace also, I'll be sharing here itself. Share. Let me make it as everyone. Instead of restricted, I will give here anyone with the link. So if you open the link, simply you can download the projects. For sample, you can try now. Sure, ma. If I have some old projects also, I'll share. Can you take the link from chat box now? This is the Hibernate projects workspace. Again, we may miss, that is the reason now itself. The other examples also I'll be sharing here itself. Take the link from chat box, everyone. The next one is Hibernate query language I want to discuss here. Very important topic, ma. Hibernate query language. Right click on SRC, new package. Private string name. I want to show you this example also. Okay. First, if you want to add the jar files, you need to add if you want to work with the annotations, you need to add the jar files. Build path, configure build path, add live. Okay. It's not opening. It will open, ma. I have given anyone with the link, right? I have given access. You should be able to download. That is a zip file. You need to extract it. You need to extract it. Okay. @entity @table. See here, I'm not giving any names. @ID @generated value of strategy is equal to auto. Alt Shift S or select all. Click on OK. See here, I'm not giving any column names here. I'm not giving any column names, just I'm leaving like this. Okay. I think, let us see. Let me take the other things as well. Let me take the test.java, same example. By default, our project class name is employee, right? The table is going to be created. Configuration file. Let me take the configuration file also. So what happens, you know, what is our project class name here? Employee, right? The same class table is going to be created. Okay. In the configuration file, we are going to give the database and hibernate properties. Okay. Like this, we need to define. You should download now first. Let me. SQL done. What happened? Unknown column name in the field set. Just a second, let me give here columns. Let me. Okay, I got the point. So basically, here we are defining these properties. After defining these properties, we are going to take the XML name. We are going to take the mapping file basically. Okay. Generated class is equal to increment. See here, I'm not giving any table name and I'm not giving any column names. And in configuration file, it is a XML file, right? So we need to define the XML here. What is the issue still? Unknown column name in the field list. Can anyone tell me what is the issue here? How to configure Hibernate? We are not configuring anything, just we are creating a project and we are creating our Java classes. That's it. Employee already existed. SQL done. Okay. See here, show tables. Employee table got created. By default, your project class name is the table name, and by default, variable names are the column names. We are not defining any table name and column names. You got my point, right? Did you understand the concept of HQL, how we are working? Yeah, just take this code. Now take this code, take the XML file. Other things already you have, right? Only need to take the mapping file. Okay. Take this XML ma. We'll go for the next concept now. I'm giving time for 5 minutes. Just you need to take the code. Okay. Once you're done with this example, right? Once again, I'll upload the projects, and I'll be giving a requirement. You need to work on it. Yes. Why? Because the thing is, in configuration file, you are giving create already table is there. That is the reason we are getting an issue. Okay. Once delete the table and try it once again. Okay. Take the mapping file. completed how to add Hibernate servants to employee.java. It is just a Poja class. It is a combination of private variables and public methods. All these things we don't need. Let me delete all these things. Anyway, we are creating a mapping file, right? That is the reason. Got my point? Can we go for the next concept now? So here I have shown you how we are inserting the data automatically by automatically creating a table. Other things you need to work. Okay. Now we'll go for the next concept is Spring Framework basically. So before going to discuss about Spring Framework, take down frameworks are of two types. Frameworks are of two types. One is invasive framework. One is invasive framework. Second one is non-invasive framework. One is invasive framework and second thing is non-invasive framework. Invasive framework means it forces the programmer to extend or implement framework related classes or interfaces. Non-invasive means it never forces the programmer to extend or implement framework related classes or interfaces. Okay. Now, invasive framework example is EJVs, GSFs, all old things. Okay, struts and all those things. Non-invasive framework example is Hibernate, Spring Boot. All these things are the examples of. All these things are examples of non-invasive framework. Okay. Now, let me start with the Spring. Let me start with the Spring framework. So basically, before Spring framework, we have a concept called struts. Before Spring, we have struts framework. We have a number of problems in struts. That is the reason we are going for Spring. We are having some problems in struts framework. That is the reason we are going for Spring. So what are the problems we are having in struts? Limitations of struts. By using struts, we can develop only web applications. Using struts, we can develop only web applications. Okay. And the second point is, it is an invasive framework. It forces the programmer to extend or implement framework struts related class or interfaces. Means if you are creating some controller class, means it is mandatory to extend struts implemented class or interfaces. Okay, it is the invasive framework. Okay, it forces the programmer. To extend or implement struts related classes or interfaces. Okay, and it is very difficult to integrate with other frameworks. Next problem is, it is not easy to integrate with other frameworks. is not easy to integrate with the other frameworks easily. Okay, these are the problems we are having. To overcome the limitations of structs, we are going for Spring framework. Okay, these are some of the problems we are having in. Please tell me, everyone, if our class recordings are available. Class recordings are available, right? Once again, I'll check with the team management and I'll update you where you can check the recordings. Okay, just a second. In the meanwhile, let's continue the session. To overcome the limitations of structs, we are going for Spring framework. Give me a minute, Tim. taken these points, team? Yeah, just a second. Can you hear me, team? Just I was facing some connectivity issue. You can hear me, right? Can someone respond? So to overcome the limitations of struts, we are going for Spring framework. Let me give the advantages of Spring to overcome the. So what are the problems we are having in struts? Those problems will be overcome in Spring framework. We go for Spring framework. Using Spring, we can develop any kind of applications. Using Spring, we can develop any kind of applications. It is a non-invasive framework. It never forces the programmer to extend or implement framework-related classes or interfaces. It is a non-invasive framework. And we can develop any kind of applications. That is the biggest advantage of Spring framework. And if you're working with Spring Boot, right, we will be having input server as well. And if you're doing any modifications automatically, changes also will be deployed. And one more biggest advantage is it is very easy to integrate with other frameworks. It is very easy to integrate with other frameworks. Okay, these are the advantages we are having. Take these points. Now I'll discuss about the concept of Spring modules. Take these points and let me know once you're done. Just ping me in chat box. Yeah. So as a part of Spring, we are having the following modules: Spring IOC, Spring JDBC, Spring MVC, Spring ORM, and Spring AOP. We are having modules. Each module has its own specifications and own advantages. And for learning each and every module, we are having some prerequisite. If you are not aware of the prerequisites, you cannot learn these modules and you cannot work with application development. Take down Spring modules. Take down Spring modules. Just a second. Yeah. So I had a discussion regarding the recordings. Recordings are uploaded in already LMS portal, and if you want to know how to access this LMS, just they have already shared in WhatsApp groups and WhatsApp channels. Just go through it. Still, if you are not aware, just let us know. Okay, let me continue the session. Spring modules. Spring IOC, Spring JDBC, Spring ORM, Spring AOP. Take these modules. So what I told is, as I told you, right, for each and every module, there is a prerequisite to work with Spring Java. Is as a part of Spring IOC, we will be having different concepts like primitives, dependency object, collections with string type of data, non-string type of data, map with string type of data and non-string type of data. If you want to work with these specific topics in Spring IOC, we should have knowledge on core Java. If you are not aware of collection framework concept, you cannot work with Spring IOC collections. Similarly, if you are not aware of map concept, you cannot work with Spring IOC with map. So that is the reason I recommend everyone to learn the prerequisites properly. Similarly, why we are going for Spring JDBC? We are having some limitations in JDBC. That is the reason we are going for Spring JDBC. Similarly, we are having some problems in solids and JSP. That is the reason we are going for Spring MVC. Again, we are having some problems in Hibernate. We are having. You may have a question like, what is the problem of working with Hibernate? You already aware like we have some problems in JDBC. That is the reason we are going for Hibernate. Even in Hibernate also we have a biggest problem. The problem is, if you see test.java, every time we are creating a configuration object, we are creating session factory, we are creating session object, we are creating transaction object. All these things we are doing, right? That is also one kind of boilerplate code. Instead of writing all these lines, simply in Spring ORM, we are going to create a reference for Hibernate template and we can work with Hibernate template. That is what the advantage of working with Spring ORM. Okay. So that is the reason for learning these modules, you should have knowledge on the basic things. Any questions, team? And similar to Hibernate, if you want to work with Spring Framework, we need to download the Spring jar files and we need to work. You're getting my point, right? Same. Whenever we are working with frameworks, that framework specific jar files we need to download and add to our application. AOP stands for Aspect Oriented Programming. It is also one kind of object oriented programming. It is used to differentiate the business logic and service logic. To remove the confusion, we are going to work with aspect oriented programming. AOP stands for Aspect Oriented Programming. It is also one kind of object oriented programming language, you can feel. But anyway, nowadays we are not working with aspect oriented programming. Completely we are going to work with the Spring Boot, and there we are going to use auto wiring. Anyway, that is a different concept. In JDBC the code is 2 length, I mean large code. Yes, in JDBC ORM stands for object relational mapping. One kind of Hibernate. Basically we have some problems in Hibernate. That is the reason we are going for Spring ORM. If anyone asks you what is the problem of working with Hibernate, you can say like boilerplate code like creating configuration object, creating session factory, creating session and creating transaction object. All these are the problems. To overcome all these problems, we are going for Spring ORM. Anyway, nowadays we are not working with Spring ORM as well. We are working with Spring Data JPA. Okay, those things we will be discussing in the upcoming sessions. When we have started the concept of Spring Boot, right? There I will discuss clearly how we are going to work with Spring Boot Data JPA, how to work with Spring Boot security, how to work with Spring Boot exception handling. These things we are going to discuss as a part of the upcoming sessions. But to learn those things, we should have some basic idea on these specific topics. That is the reason we are discussing about these Spring modules. Okay, fine. Any questions? Any questions, team? So I'm going to give 2 minutes time. Just if you have any questions, you can ping me in chat box. And once again, I'm repeating, how strong you are in core Java and Spring Boot, that will decide your job. Okay. Why? Because in interviews nowadays, no one is asking about JDBC solids and JSP. No one is asking about nowadays Hibernate also. Okay. Your technical skills on core Java and Spring Boot will decide your job and Spring modules. And if you have some knowledge on React.js, that will be an added advantage. What is the difference between Spring and Spring Boot? Yeah, I'll explain you. Again, in Spring Framework, we are having a lot of boilerplate code. We need to define the configuration file. This is the biggest problem, and we need to develop the application from very scratch level. But if you're working with Spring Boot, we have a concept called Spring Initializer, start.spring.io. By using that website, we are going to create a project. There itself, we are going to add the dependencies. We are going to add the Maven dependencies, and we are going to work with Spring Boot. And one more biggest advantage is we will be having inbuilt server called Tomcat. If you are working with servlets or JSP or Spring MVC, we need to add the server manually to develop a web application. But while working with Spring Boot, we will be having an inbuilt server called Tomcat. We can work with that Tomcat server. And one more advantage of working with Spring Boot is automatic deployment. If we do any modifications, every time we don't need to restart the server. That is what the advantage of working with Spring Boot. And whenever we are creating a Spring Boot project, by default, you will be having the application.properties file. There we are going to define our data, like our database properties or Spring properties, whatever it may be. According to the software we are using, it will be like Tomcat 9. I usually work with Tomcat 9, so it can be 9. What certifications need to do for CSC student at present? Certifications particularly, as of now, no need. But if you want to do any certification, you can do OCA. Previously, we will be having OCJP and we will be having SCJP. This kind of certifications we will be having. But nowadays, it is divided into 2 parts, OCA and OCP. OCA stands for Oracle Certified Associate. OCA stands for Oracle Certified Associate. OCP stands for Oracle Certified Professional. Okay, these certifications. Sir, even after adding the jar files for me, we are calling error calling driver connect error is raising. What to do, sir? Is it Hibernate? Once check the Hibernate configuration file. See, if you don't add the jar files properly, you will be getting the issue in. First of all, you will be getting a compile time error in test.java. But when you run the application at runtime, you are getting the issue means there is some issue with Hibernate configuration file. You may miss something. So check those things once. Okay, na? Sir, once show how to add Hibernate jar files in our project. Just what you need to do is, however, I'm showing you right in the same manner, you need to add the Spring jar files also. Right click on your project. Right click on your project, build path, configure build path, configure build path. Okay. Here you will be having add library, user library, user libraries. You need to click on new here, give some name, click on OK, add external jars, select all the jar files, click on open, click on finish. You understood, right? How to add the jar files? Can you please repeat the certifications? OCA, Oracle Certified Associate. Here I'm showing the certifications for Java. Okay, na? OCA, Oracle Certified Associate. As a fresher, that is more than enough, ma. If you want to do some professional certification, OCP, Oracle Certified Professional. How to create Hibernate file? Adding the jar files images to create. My Eclipse not having build path. You should have. You need to right click on your project. It is not related to Eclipse, it is related to your project. Right click on your project, build path, configure build path, libraries, user libraries, create new, add external jars, click on finish. Even if you type like how to add the jar files in Google, right? By default, Stack Overflow website will be opened. There you'll be having step by step clearly. Okay. Yeah, today just I have given introduction. Now on top of it, tomorrow I'll be discussing about the concept of Spring Framework.
Okay. Okay.
Fine. Any questions on today's concept? While downloading React.js, I got many error in command prompt. Check the version once. Remove the previous version and add the latest version. Okay, na? Session 6 and session 7 not recorded. I will check. I'll update with them. I'll ask them to upload the recording. You can work with Node.js 16 version and try. Yes, next week, once I discuss about Spring Boot, right, I'll be discussing about microservices as well. It is there in the plan. Fine, just go through these things. Today, complete the Hibernate examples practice and let me know tomorrow if you're facing any issues. Tomorrow, we will be discussing about Spring multiple modules, like how we are going to work with Spring IOC, Spring JDBC, and these things I'll discuss. From next book, from next week, we'll be discussing about, tomorrow and day after tomorrow, we'll be discussing all the Spring modules. Next week, we'll discuss about Spring Boot with REST APIs, microservices, how we are going to integrate, how to work with React.js. Project oriented, I'll be discussing the whole week next week. Okay, this is our plan of action. Okay, fine then. I'm closing for now. Let's connect tomorrow. Thank you all. Just a second, I'll share the feedback link with you. Just a second. Fine. Thanks everyone. Let's connect tomorrow with the new topic. Thank you all. Have a nice day.